the air of silence, her laughter sucked into the resources of a taunting black hole, while our hearts reach for fading flashes of her light against a freezer burn of absence. A raven's nevermore joins in haunting harmony with the sobs of Gwendolyn Brooks' mother, and Deja's return is fresh as the first flower that pushes its head through the corpse of January grass. I sit in the middle of the disaster area, wondering, where in the hell is Black Barbie's other leg? I pull Deja's limp, Raggedy Ann body from the floor, and she is a condemned building collapsing into me. Her 4-year-old frame, never feather lights, weighted with the wet sandbags of someone else's neurosis. She is already a sprinter with worn legs, a running back having been tackled too many times. She is a boxer that's taken too many punches to the head. She looks up to me with shattered pearls for eyes, and in one swoop, I thrust her into the air above my head, and she becomes a bird who is reclaiming her wings. Up and down, I toss her little beanbag body, and a smile begins to creep across her face like a late sunrise, all purple and gold. And by the third toss, she forgets the cigarette burns and the scars, and we are baptized in her laughter as we soar into the sunshine. Thank you.
Okay. I'll read a few more. See, you got those long poems. I'm writing these short things for this, but I'm going to read a few more. This was called King Snake Blues, Paradise Lost, and I want you to listen for the alliteration in the poem. Saints say, seek solace in the sublime shadow of self. So said the spirits of sages can sing songs to those daughters and sons whose eyes see no sun. Shh, shut up and listen. Somewhere amidst the slithering sound of silence, death crawls through a slit in the universe like a Mississippi king snake sliding through grass, waiting its turn at prey. This poem is called The Question, and it's dedicated to C.Liegh Lyman. I wrote this after reading his book, How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America. So say you still want to know why would I sing the blues in these postmodern times where media illusionists weave phantom tales of a completely colorblind, multicultural dream sewn from the fleshy threads of Emmett Till's ghost, tie-dyed in the hallowed blood of Trayvon Martin. I reply, in a land so cold, so cruel, so far away from the place of comfort I call home, in a place where I am haunted, hated, hunted, and hanged. What else can I do when I, knowing who I am, refuse to be a good nigger and die by my own hands, or worse yet, yours? Here's a haiku. Sunrise, bullets fly, smoke clears, dust settled, wars won, money made, lives lost. This poem was published in Gawker and garnered quite a bit of 30,000 people commented on it. A lot of trolls commented on it also. It's called Another Mississippi Murder. It's dedicated to Mike Brown, Lennon Lacy, Eric Garner, and countless others who've fallen victims to racial violence. They killed that boy, lynched him just to show us my name is what it is. They did it, because that's what they do in Kokomo, Mississippi, kill folk. The same way they did Emmett Till in Money, Mississippi, the same way they did Vernon Damer in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, the same way they did Medgar Evers in Jackson, Mississippi, the same way they did Schooner, Goodman, and Cheney in Philadelphia, Mississippi, the same way they did Mac Charles Parker in Poplarville, Mississippi, the same way they killed Andre Jones in a Simpson County jail cell. hung him like he was a skint pig left to rot under the watchful eye of an old pale-faced devil moon. Down in Mississippi, where Raynard and Adele Johnson found death's cold hands draped in swaddling white sheets wrapped around his teenage throat, choking the life out of his virile black body as it swayed like a lusty whore, flirting in the flushed face of a history so ugly only an ignorant, limp-dick, pot-bellied, beard-guzzling, rebel flag-waving, trailer trash-talking redneck could love it. Mississippi is a slithering seductress, a geographical Jezebel whose whiteness taunts me like an electric ghost in the industrial machine of Dixiecratic politics. I know her well, because I love and I hate her so much that every now and then and again it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Yet we continue to march and sing and pray for a land soaked in our innocent blood. When war cries and battle hymns are needed, for this is a new song for a new day and a new time. Our peace will not be said in hushed apologetic tones of slobbering Uncle Tom seeking reconciliation. No, this time we want justice. If not, then we'll settle for revenge.
Tell us how you really feel, John. All right, so this next poem, some of you know, my second book was about the lyrics of Prince, and so I got to work for a year and a half with Prince on the book that he was planning to write. And one of the things that I got from him was, Prince has this statement, he says that sick as an artist is doing something that other people are afraid to do. And I've always been that way, but I got it from my parents who gave me the liberty to think for myself. And so later Professor Rivera's going to be reading, and her and Professor Finney have been talking about the protecting of the secret place. And for me, it's a question of embracing your being peculiar. And so this poem about embracing your being peculiar is simply titled, Hold On to Your Insanity. But the point is that I want people who read this poem to know that you cannot allow somebody to make you feel bad about your uniqueness. It's your insanity, it's your peculiarity that will allow you to bless society. So I'll stop there, but I see so many people surrendering to normality. Stop surrendering to normality, because the more people we have surrendering to normality, the fewer people we have to offer creative solutions, and that's why the world continues the same. So it's hold on to your insanity. The well-dressed carnival clowns have waged war on the insane. It's open season on the mentally disturbed, as if it is our fault that our brains are too big for our bodies, or is it that our creativity overcrowds the closets of your minds, or is it that our imagination is a river that floods your dry reality? Don't let them take your insanity from you. See, being sick is simply liberation from a castrated normality that truly leads to a midnight dive off into the pool's deep end. It's the peculiar people. We are the children of the sun, and we didn't even actually be planted in this dry soil. Tomorrow equates to a bucket of waste to us. See, all of my todays and yesterdays look like twins, so erase from your mind the mathematicians who looked into the back of the book for the answer. It still doesn't mean that they can solve for X and Y, which are slipping on the slope of sliding sanity like a church girl who doesn't know how she got dirty panties. Fantasy is the acting agent of reality. At least Parliament Funkadelic said so. They, the normal mockingbirds, tried to assimilate me. Nietzsche! Are the waters muddy enough for you? Your behind went crazy, didn't you? See, swimming in shallow waters will do that for you. You stayed up there too long, man. You stayed away. Still away. Still away. Why would you want them malignant mockingbirds to understand you anyway? What made you think that people with a concrete vision could understand a man with water-flowing dreams? Don't worry, see, because Heidegger and Derrida, they molded and mainstreamed your jazz for you. Like Texas Instruments modified the scientific calculator for any fool looking for the square root of zero. My mind is mine, no matter how muddy it is, and I didn't fill out no application to be here. They, the contracted scholars trying to put my round peg into their square ideology, they tell me to cut my hair. I tell them to grow some integrity.
Mm.
Damn you in the theory of consolidation, downsizing the mainstream and full course you took to improve your Dow Jones value with the world. You and your bull mentality. If resistance is futile, I'll drink a cup of death. Jesus, save me with your red wine. My God, am I hanging on a rugged cross? Janie! They want my inside, baby, but I need your pantry. Can you say just one more TK? The insane are scared. The sane are paranoid. Locked into this windowless room together. None of us want to sleep. My soul falls like a failing anvil. It's dark and I can still hear the sisters on the morning board. I love the Lord. Why am I holding to hold? Why am I holding to hold? Why am I need sleep with my dreams. Thank you.
This next poem I'm going to read, again, these are all short, but these are new poems. This one's called Pavlovian Politics. Who in here is a psychology major? Nobody?
What? Not one future shrink in the house?
Okay. There's a psychologist named Pavlov, I forget his first name, and it's not really all that important, but he came up with an experiment where he trained, he called it conditioning, where he put dogs in a cage and he would ring a bell and he would feed them shortly. And then over a period of time, the dogs got used to associating the sound of the bell with food. So when they rung the bell, the dogs would start salivating even though they weren't being fed. Now, in the history of Mississippi, there is a racist governor by the name of Bilbo, Theodore G. Bilbo, who my uncle used to say would get elected based on the number of times he said nigger in a speech. He would say that and those poor white people would vote for him regardless of the fact that he was going to put them in the worst economic conditions ever. All he had to do was say, I'm going to get those niggers. So that is, you put those two things together and you get this book, this poem, called Pavlovian Politics. And it's real short. I call all white supremacists dogs because they answer to the whistling words of slick-ass politicians whose synonym for nigger sends them salivating blood as they eat themselves into a slow, agonizing death. And to think, they got the gall to call us stupid. This was called The Gospel According to the Right Reverend Crafty Dollar and His Church of the Poisoned Mind. Y'all know Creflo Dollar, right? Well, that's my name for him, Crafty Dollar. And T.D. Snakes is my name for T.D. Jakes. He's gonna get a point soon, don't worry. Crafty had the nerve, the gall, to ask his parishioners for what, $48 billion?
For a new jet plane.
For a new jet plane that turns out the pilot said it didn't cost $48 billion. So, here's my point for him. They say that the ratchet route to Hades is filled with the best of human intention, along with the religious longings of TV evangelicals laced with the poisonous ambition of good capitalists, out to score filthy lucre pushing the scurrilous scrolls of sacrilegious sages who say, suffer, 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 suckers who suck everything from your trampled and trodden corpse. Remember, there'll be gold and prosperity for all in bliss-filled heaven when your veins are dry and your soulless body is exposed to the cold of death. This next poem is called Dreamland. I'm reading short pieces, and I'm going to read my last poem. Dreamland is a poem that is written, was published in England, and it's, written about the Queen of England. England's supposed to be America's mother country, so, I'm England. Greenland. You're a long, long way from London on a slow train through Africa. Poor little rich girl on a hedonist safari, here to save the wretched heathens with your arms and your aid, your Bible and your rifle, building roads that pave over graves filled with the bones of humanity, with crucifix headstones set to remind us that colonialism is an Excalibur extremely thrust deep into the solar plexus, snaking its way into the heart of hearts. It is an excruciatingly slow and painful bereavement, socially engineered by the mighty monarchs of industry, sanctioned by the unsaintly sages of Western theocracy who believe in the almighty creed of greed, dispatching a flock of robotic vultures to suck and devour the bloody minerals of Mother Earth as a sacrament to the unholy idol of global domination. They say the sun never sets on the British Empire. That was some yesteryears ago, before the natives grew restless and tired of serving as a footstool for a crown that never cared for its subjects, much less its servant slaves. Today, the lady can search far and wide the countryside to find neither horse, nor ass, nor dog to stomach the stout weight of her fancy fat ass. Ring the alarm! Another union is dying, and this time, God either can't or won't save her. This last poem is called A Treatise on Justice, and it's real short. A pact signed, penned by victors and signed by victims at the point of a gun is no treaty nor truce to bring lasting peace, just theft. Remember that, and you'll be halfway on the path to a soul-saving sanity and a sliver of a step closer to justice.
So my last poem is, I wrote it in 2002 when my mother passed, and it's not a sad poem, and so I just feel like it being apropos that Jubilee, of course, is based on Margaret Walker's grandmother, so I wanted to, I'll end with that. It's simply titled Black Diamonds. Black diamonds don't ever need no polish. They just shine like a new day breaking over the last, like a flames of truth incinerating a stack of lies. See, I've known pyramids. Seen them in the eyes of black girls who know that God loves them because their hair is a crown of righteous wool and it consummates their head like an onyx sunrise. Ain't never no shame in the smile of a black girl cause gold knows it's been through something to be as brilliant as it is. Black girls love like today is the final moment in time, a love that can hold all of the atoms and all of the eves, and a love that fills our age cup with the sweetest strawberry self-esteem, a love that smothers us with a cotton quilted antiquity, a love that repels the world's white lies. See, black girls grow up to be the air in our lungs, they grow up to be the water in our bath. Black girls grow up to be the tears in our eyes and the fires in our stoves. Black girls grow up to be the prayer on our lips and the amen in our nights. Black girls grow up to be the pollen in our spring and the hands pushing us in our back. I knew a little black girl who, as a woman, dusted the mendacity of fantasism off her Sunday dress and raised herself up into the world's cross so that I may be saved from its gory fangs, washed from my mind the filthy falsehood of mammies and Jezebels, and fed me rain with Madonnas who bathed in the rich bottoms of the sunflower and the Mississippi. I've known pyramids, known them all my life, and on their walls are the images of sable matriarchs for whom they were built as a testament to earthy Ebon mothers who continuously birth nature's northern star that navigates our way home. I've known pyramids, known them all my life, and on their walls, they open up a map for me to return to the first Adam, better than I was ever meant to be. Thank you. Got about 5 minutes for Q&A or for comment or whatever, or to sit silently to these 5 minutes, whatever y'all want to do.
So what draws you to haiku as a form?
Again, wasn't my ideal. My mentor, Jerry Ward, issued a challenge, and he's doing an experiment to see how your writing will change over a year. Remember, I have to write a haiku or a kwansaba every day until this time next year. And what I'm learning is discipline. I'm learning discipline because I like to write poems about politics. I like to write, since I'm a child of the Black Arts Movement, I like to write poems that are confrontational. Well, haiku doesn't necessarily lend itself to that form. If you write a traditional haiku, you have to write about either nature or light and dark, and you have to do it in 5-7-5. Believe me, it is making me a better poet, and I've only been doing this for what, about a month? It's making me a better poet. So when I find the pasabas are very easy to write because, you know, you don't have to worry about the syllables. You just have to worry about the syntax, the 7 words, 7 lines. But that's what drew me to it. Yes.
Pasabas there, you said there are 7 lines and 7 words in each line, is that what you
Yes.
mean? Okay. And another question I had in regards to you talking about T.D. Jakes and
Crafty dollars.
yeah. Like as far as those mega preachers and all that, do you think all of them are like that, or is it just certain bunches?
The ones that I see on TV, they're all snakes. And let me explain to you why. Because Jesus was a revolutionary. Jesus believed in helping the poor. He stood up to the Roman government. He even stood up to the Pharisees and scribes, and he hated bankers. The money changers were bankers. What did he do to the money changers? Well, what does T.D. Snakes and Crafty Dollar do? They run to the bank. They fleece people and run to the bank. If they were like King, if they were like Bishop Tutu, I'd be writing Quinsaba's praising them. But since they're not, then they have to get what they get, and they're going to get from me. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. It's a good question, though. Glad you asked.
Yes, ma'am. Up in the top, way up in the top. Not that far at the top. There you go.
I think
Yes,
it's out.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm just beginning, I didn't realize we had started, and I apologize for walking in with noise and everything, but did you all sort of talk about your foundation, sort of how you realized you were going to sort of got into sort of craft, your craft?
Yeah, I've done. Because when Charlie, you'll see why I go. That's my father right there. His phone is going off. Anyway, my father was such a revolutionary on this campus. When I came to Jackson State, there were teachers that hated me. Because my father, as a revolutionary, tried to get like all Greek fraternities and sororities banned off campus. He said, we're going to have one organization, Black folk organization, period. He came within 3 votes of getting all Greek organizations because it was Black folk organization for Black folk, period. So you can imagine how it worked for me, being a freshman, with all my teachers who were in Greek organizations. Like, you're a junior. Now, saying that to say, my mother and father had so many books, there was no way I couldn't become a writer. Negro Digest, Black World. So I was a reader. I had books as toys. Like literally in my mother's back seat, I would play with books. And they were building blocks, right? I never had any like traditional toys. All of my toys were books. So other than sports, I was around reading all the time. And so you read so much, and then all of a sudden you become a writer. But how I became an active writer is that being raised in the Mississippi Delta as an only child. The problem being raised in the country as an only child is if I fight Charlie, and Charlie has brothers, I have to fight 3 people.
Yeah.
So that was my deal. I got beat up a lot because I had a smart mouth. So what I would do is after I get beat up, Westerns were really big when I was a child. So I would go in the house and I would rewrite the Westerns and I would be the sheriff and all those people beat me up, I would put them in jail. Those were literally the first story. And I remember writing being kind of cathartic, right? That I couldn't win the fights out there, but I could definitely win. And then fast forward to my 9th grade year, my father had purchased for me The Prophet by C.Liegh. Never yet, by C.Liegh. And I gave it to my 9th grade English teacher, who was this really kind of mean. She was a good English teacher, but she was just a mean one. She was a good teacher, she was a mean one. and she was a white female. And I remember giving her the book. And this mean woman who ruled over us with an iron fist just started shaking. She said, well, obviously your father wants you to know some very deep things, but this is not what and she threw the book at me and ran down the hall.
Yeah.
And I remember the book, she threw the book so hard, it stuck to my chest and it fell in my arms. I remember looking at the book and watching this teacher run down the hall, and I said, that's what I want to do for a living. I want to mess people up. I didn't say be a writer. All I knew was that writers could mess people up. Here was this woman who ruled over us with an iron fist, had been shaken to her foundations by a book. I get to college, trying to find out how to be a writer. Charlie Braxton is 8 years older than I am. Charlie Braxton had been a president of student government here at Jackson State. When I was a student, Charlie was in every magazine I wanted to be in. He was in every anthology I wanted to be in. So I would have these magazines. A Jackson State student was out there living the world. So from my parents to the experience with knowing that writing could be cathartic, to the experience with that teacher, to seeing somebody tangible who looked like me, who could be published, right, from Macomb, Mississippi. All those things led, but that early foundation for me was reading was all I did other than playing sports.
I grew up in Macomb, Mississippi, and being handicapped, I lived with my mother and my grandmother. And my grandmother was one of those old-fashioned people who felt that handicapped people should be kind of sheltered. So I didn't get a chance to really associate with a lot of people until school. But what my mother did, bless her heart, was she worked as a janitor and a cook at a school, and they were throwing away books, and she brought the books home. And one of the books that I would read is a book called Dark Symphony. It's a Harlem Renaissance and post-Harlem Renaissance anthology. And in there they had great poets. They had Langston Hughes, Gwendolyn Brooks, Warren Cooney, Georgia Douglas Johnson. And those words sort of spoke to me. And I also had a high school teacher, I'll never forget this. He taught bonehead English. His name was Mr. Wade. I always dedicate every book I write, I put his name in it. Because, you know, I was in advanced English, and the English teacher, she taught me the fundamentals of, you know, writing, but she wasn't inspiring. And she was racist. She was Barbara Jones. So my senior year, I was talking to a friend of mine who went to Mr. Wade's class, and he was having such a ball. You know, and he actually could form sentences that he couldn't form prior to going to Mr. Wade's class. So I'm like, I want to be in that class. So I went to Miss Fessmeyer and I asked her, can I get in Mr. Wade's class? And she was like, no, Charlie, you have your CAT scores say that you belong in advanced English. He teaches bonehead English. There's nothing in there but athletes. You don't want to be in there. I said, yes, I do. And so after insisting, she finally put me in there and said, look, I'm going to put in your records that you asked for this. I said, that's no problem. When I got there, what Mr. Wade would do is he would make you write an essay, and then he would make you read the essay to the class. So if you were grammatically incorrect, the class is going to give it to you. You're going to get clowned. And so I wrote an essay about, my first essay was an essay about Bob Marley. Because I loved Bob Marley. I first heard Exodus, and I loved him. I just thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. And so when I finished reading the essay, Randy Jones said, you know, that boy can write. And Mr. Wade said, yes, by gosh, I believe he can. And Mr. Wade, from that point on, spent time. He would give me books. He would tell me you know, different things. And then one day he told me, he said, you know, I really believe you can make it as a writer. I always wanted to be a writer, but I'm stuck here teaching. So if one of my students can become a great writer, I will feel vindicated. So when I pick up my pen, I write for people like Mr. Wade. I write for people like my stepfather who had a 5th grade education. I write for people like my mother. I write for people like the people I went to Bonehead English with that people thought were the rejects of society. And I get to piss off some people sometimes too. That helps me. That really makes me feel good. Especially if I can piss off some right-wing, racist asshole. I really love that.
And it's important, I guess, Andy, because we gotta go to sessions, to understand how important writing has been. My father was arrested 3 times working to get people to vote. And this stays with me, because it connects with what Charlie's saying. My father had been identified as one of those people who were working in civil rights movement. So he got arrested one day for carrying a deadly weapon. I need you to understand that the charge was carrying a deadly weapon. So when they patted him down, they said, "You're going to jail, you carrying a deadly weapon." And my father said, "What are you talking about? I'm a student." He said, "That's a deadly weapon." My father said, "It's a pencil." And the white police officer said, "You know niggas don't write." So you have to understand how important language has always been to our liberation. And that's why we have these, because that's who Margaret Walker was. She wrote our story. She told us that we had the right to be genius, to be beautiful. And so if you take nothing else from these readings, and the rest of the day is, who's going to tell your story? Don't let somebody else tell you, look, we all have a different aesthetic. We all want to publish in different journals. Some of you are my former students. Take what I give you, don't take what I give you. But do not allow anyone else to tell your story. You have the ability, through pen, through computer, through video, through any way you choose, to tell your story. Thank you.
Thank you.